I was scrolling through a bunch of cheap HDMI switchers that promised streaming for under $100, and every time I read the reviews I saw the same regret: choppy video, dropped frames, and a control app that crashes. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I figured I needed to see if a more professional all-in-one could actually save me the headache. Why I spent a weekend testing the Magewell Director 155260 to find out whether it really feels like a smarter buy or just another pricey gadget that looks good on paper. The first thing that struck me was how the Director 1 tries to collapse an entire live production workflow into a single, 7-inch AMOLED touchscreen. Most streamers I talk to start with a laptop, a separate capture card, a software mixer, and then a separate encoder in the cloud. That stack works, but you end up juggling 3 windows, 3 power cords, and a million software updates. With Magewell's unit, the HDMI inputs, the encoder, the recorder, and the switcher are all inside the same metal case. In practice that means I can walk into a small conference room, plug 2 DSLR cameras into the HDMI ports, hook a laptop via USB-A for a webcam feed, and I'm ready to go. The built-in HDMI program output lets me send a clean signal straight to a projector or a secondary monitor without having to run an extra cable to the laptop. For a creator who wants to stream a cooking show from a kitchen, the workflow is almost painless. I set up my first DSLR on a tripod for a wide shot, the second DSLR on a side table for close-ups, and I used my iPad as a webcam source via the USB-A port. The touchscreen lets me create 3 scenes in under 5 minutes, a full camera view, a picture-in-picture of camera 2 over camera 1, and a split screen that also displays a PNG graphic of my recipe steps that I loaded from a USB flash drive. Switching between those scenes is as simple as tapping the thumbnail, and the transition feels instant, no lag, no software buffer. The encoding side is where the Director 1 starts to justify its price. It supports both H.264 and the newer H.265, and it can push directly to RTMP, SRT, or NDI-HX without ever touching a computer. In my tests I streamed to YouTube at 1080p 60 fps using H.264, and the bitrate stayed steady at around 6 megabits per second. When I switched to H.265 and dropped the resolution to 720p 30 fps for a low bandwidth test, the stream remained smooth even on a 3G cellular connection. That kind of hardware-level flexibility is rare in a device that fits on a tabletop, and it saved me from having to buy a separate encoder box. Recording is another practical strength. The Director 1 can write the program output or any individual source straight to an SD card, and it does so in a format you can pull into any NLE later. I recorded a full rehearsal of a church service, then later imported the SD card into Premiere and found each camera angle already synced to the program timeline. No extra time spent aligning separate files. The only caveat is that you need to bring enough high-speed cards. A single hour of 1080p 60 fps H.264 fills a 64 GB card pretty quickly, and the unit doesn't support dual card mirroring for redundancy. Now, the weaknesses become clearer when you step back from the single-person use case. The device only has 2 HDMI inputs and 2 USB-A ports. If you're running a 3-camera panel or need to capture an HDMI-based graphics workstation plus a camera and a laptop, you'll quickly run out of ports. Magewell does allow you to connect an external HDMI splitter or a USB hub, but that adds latency and extra cables, exactly the kind of complexity the all-in-one is meant to avoid. Audio is also a bit of a blind spot. The unit can pass through HDMI audio, but there's no built-in mixer, no XLR, and no separate line-in. For a musician live stream or a podcast with multiple mics, you'll still need an external audio interface or a mixer before the signal hits the Director 1. Another hidden trade-off is the lack of SDI. If you're in a broadcast environment where long cable runs and professional cameras are the norm, you'll be looking at a different solution. The Director 1 is clearly aimed at the prosumer market, small venues, churches, classrooms, and creators who want a portable, plug-and-play system. It shines when the entire workflow can stay inside the HDMI/USB realm and when you value having a single point of control that you can carry in a backpack. So who should buy this? If you're a YouTuber or Twitch streamer who already juggles multiple cameras and wants to ditch the laptop-centric workflow, this is a solid upgrade. It also makes sense for small-scale live events. Think community theater, a local sports game, or a weekly church service where you need a reliable encoder.